Radio check muna tayo. What's up guys? How are you guys doing today? Magandang umagahan, tanghalian, kung saan man kayong sulok na mood na dyan. What's up guys? How are you guys doing today? Radio check muna ako. Check mo muna yung audio ko. Just want to see how's my audio going. Kumusta po kayo dyan guys? Ayun o, ayos naman pala. Let's go. We just gonna talk about, makikinig po tayo ito ngayon sa isa na namang psychology type of stuff. Pakikinggan po natin to. Kumusta po sa ating mga kabrobo dyan kung saan man kayong sulok ng mundo. What's up guys? Ito na po. Ang title nga po ng ating pakikinggan Why is Spiritually Awakened People Stop Aging by Carl Jung. So ulit nga pala lagi dito kay Carl Jung at talaga ng mga binibigyan tayo ng magandang this beautiful mga mapapakinggan na mga understanding. Salute sa ating mga kabrobo dyan. How are you guys? And here we go.
About for years afterward. Maybe it was someone you passed on the street whose face made you look twice without knowing exactly why. A person who by all objective measures should look their age, who has lived through real difficulty, who has not had an easy life or unusual access to resources or any of the external advantages that are supposed to correlate with looking young. And yet there is something in their face that is not old in the way you would expect it to be. It is not that the wrinkles are absent. It is not that time has not marked them. It is something underneath the marks of time, a quality of life behind the eyes, a specific ease in the way they hold their face and body, an aliveness that registers before you can name it, and that does not match the
Sometimes guys, talaga ng mga may nangyayari sa buhay ng mga tao, guys, that yung bang experience na nangyayari sa buhay natin, it do really tend to leave mark sa ating face dito sa ating mga mukha, and those type of worry are the one who pakiramdam na natin, and according sa mga na somehow nagpa-create yung nagpapatanda sa iyo. Kaya salute sa ating mga kabrabo dyan. Magandang tanghalian, hapunan, kung saan man kayo guys sulok ng mundo dyan. What's up?
arithmetic of what the years should have done to them. Carl Jung noticed this in his patients and spent years trying to understand it. He saw it consistently across his clinical career in patients who had undergone significant inner transformation and who carried, in their face and in their body and in the specific quality of how they occupied space, something that did not correspond to the arithmetic of their years. He could not initially explain it in terms that satisfied him scientifically, because it was not explainable in terms of the variables he knew how to measure. But the consistency of the observation across enough patients eventually forced him to take it seriously as a phenomenon rather than as a coincidence. And the explanation he eventually arrived at is one of the most important and most underappreciated things he ever documented.
Ano kaya yung guys? Ano kaya yung importante, right? I-share ko muna guys, hold on. But ituloy natin. Ma-apology guys, ma-apology. Ituloy natin itong
What he eventually concluded disturbs the comfortable story most people tell themselves about aging, not because it requires any mystical framework to accept, but because it requires something the culture is much less comfortable with than mysticism, which is the acknowledgement that most people's faces are telling a story that their owners are not consciously aware they are telling, a story about the specific relationship between who they are performing themselves to be and who they actually are, written in the specific tension and ease of the muscles, and the specific quality of the skin, and the specific aliveness or absence of aliveness behind the eyes. Because it is not a story about genetics or lifestyle or skincare or the absence of stress. It is a story about something that happens inside the psyche when a person undergoes genuine spiritual awakening, and about the specific physiological changes that transformation produces in the face and the body.
Somewhere, somehow, guys, na talagang may nangyayari in the experience of a person na talaga namang ano, yung bang sa loob ng kanilang katawan because of the experience that had happened in their life, talaga namang para raw nga na hindi sila na tumatanda ba, Carl Jung did the study on this. Pakinggan po natin siya. Salute sa ating mga kabrobo diyan, If you guys kung wala po kayo guys magawa guys, hit the link at, makipagkuwentuhan po kayo sa'kin. Good day sa inyo diyan.
And the quality of presence in ways that nothing available on the outside of a person can produce. The first thing to understand is what Jung meant by the word transformation, because it gets used so loosely in popular psychology that it has nearly lost its meaning. Transformation has been applied to everything from changing your morning routine to switching careers to going through a difficult breakup. None of these are what Jung meant. When Jung used it, he was pointing to something specific, the moment at which a person stops being primarily organized around the management of how they are perceived and starts being primarily organized around the truth of what they actually are. This is not a subtle shift. The management of how you are perceived is one of the most metabolically expensive things a human being does. It requires the continuous monitoring of every interaction for signals about how you are landing, the continuous editing of your self-expression to stay within the limits of what is acceptable, the continuous suppression of the parts of your experience that do not fit the current social context, and the continuous maintenance of a version of yourself that is optimized for approval rather than for truth. This is running in the background of every interaction, every conversation, every room you walk into, consuming processing power that would otherwise be available for the interaction itself. This is why people who have done significant inner work can seem so much more present than people who have not, even when the interaction they're in is exactly the same. The person who is not running the management program in the background has more of themselves available for the foreground, more attention available, more genuine responsiveness, more of the actual quality of their inner life available for the actual quality of the encounter. And this shows. It shows in the face, it shows in the eyes, it shows in how they listen, it shows in the specific quality of being genuinely heard that people describe feeling in the presence of someone who is not spending a significant portion of their attention on themselves while they are also attending to you. And it has been running since you were young enough to learn that certain versions of you were welcome and certain versions of you were not. The nervous system does not get a break from it. The jaw does not relax.
Good day sa lahat dyan. How are you guys doing today? Ate Grace, how are you doing today? Hope are you doing well? At, nakikinig lang po tayo. Ito nga po dito, Ate Grace, ito pinapakinggan ko. It says right here, why is spiritually awakened people stop aging? Kaya pinakikinggan po natin ito via Carl Young. Kumusta po kayo? Hope everybody is doing well.
From it. And the people who have been running this program longest are the people who are most thoroughly convinced that what they are experiencing is simply normal, simply how life feels, simply the ordinary weight of being a responsible adult in a demanding world. They do not experience the management program as a burden because they have never had sustained access to a version of their daily life in which the management program was not running. It is the specific tragedy of the most common form of chronic human suffering, which is that it is invisible from inside the experience of it precisely because it has been the experience for long enough that it has become indistinguishable from what experience simply is. The muscles around the eyes do not stop bracing for it. The breath does not deepen past the level that the management of the social situation permits. All of this sustains.
Salute to my brother, Terrence the Great. Let me put you a blue on that, man. I don't know why. I think let me put you. Salute to Terrence, my brother. Good day to everybody. We are just, listening to this lecture about Carl Jung. It says, why spiritual awakened people stop aging? Bakit kaya ho? Bakit kaya yung mga spiritual awakened people, talaga namang tumigil na raw ho yung kanilang pag-edad o they stop aging? Salute sa ating mga kabrabro dyan.
And across decades is written on the face, not because of the years, but because of the continuous internal effort the years contained. And this is the point that most people never encounter clearly enough to do anything with. The face does not age primarily because of time. It ages primarily because of what happens during the time. Two people who have lived the same number of years, but who have inhabited those years in fundamentally different internal conditions, will not look the same age. Not because of their genetics or their diet or their access to good skincare, because of the specific relationship between their authentic self and the life they have been living, and whether that relationship has been one of integration or one of continuous suppression. The suppressed person carries the suppression visibly, even when they do not feel it consciously. The integrated person carries the integration visibly too. That is what you were seeing on the face that you could not explain. You were seeing the accumulated physiological signature of someone who had been at less war with themselves than most people manage to be. The second thing to understand is what the face is actually expressing when it is expressing something other than the marks of biological time. The face is the surface of the nervous system. What lives in the nervous system.
Ayun oh, magandang umagahan diyan. Ate Grace, how are you doing today? Yeah, gising na po kami. We wake up early all the time, like around mga 3:00 pa lang po. Talagang gising na kami. And I hope na you enjoy your vacation. And I see you. Keep on enjoying that life. Hey, I don't know where you at now. I see you in Thailand. I see you in um, what's that, Vietnam? And I think you're back home at the Philippines right now. Hey, enjoy the vacation. And of course, nandito nga pala po tayo and we tap into this lecture. Ito nga pagkakasabi, why is spiritually awakened person, is spiritually awakened people are stop aging by Carl Jung. Bakit kaya ho? Marami po kasing mga nangyayari and step na sa buhay nila na talaga namang for somewhere, somehow, na-trigger a certain genes sa kanilang katawan, ga-awaken, and then for some particular reason, they stop aging. Salute sa ating mga kabrobro dyan.
Lives in the face. A person who has been in chronic low-level stress for 30 years has that stress in their face not as a cosmetic problem but as a structural condition, as the specific holding pattern of the mind.
And of course, Ate Grace, we see you. You got the new smile. Teka, hey, enjoy the new smile. Oh. Salute nga pala kay Ate Grace dyan.
Muscles that are maintained continuously by a nervous system that has been running an alarm state for so long that the alarm state has become the baseline. The jaw is slightly tighter than it needs to be. The muscles around the eyes are slightly braced. The forehead holds a tension that is not a response to a current situation, but a residue of every situation that required the suppression of something real. These are not dramatic tensions. You would not see them in a photograph necessarily. You would feel them in the room. There is a quality of slight bracing in the presence of the person who is carrying this tension in their face that is felt before it is named. A quality of encountering someone who is somewhat defended even when they are being warm and available and genuinely kind. The bracing registers even through the kindness, and the absence of bracing in the person who has released it registers equally immediately, equally below the threshold of conscious assessment. This is what people mean when they say they feel at ease with someone before they know why. What they are feeling is the absence of the defense. And the absence of the defense is the direct physiological result of an inner life that has stopped needing the defense because the conditions that produced the need have genuinely changed. Most people who carry them do not notice them most of the time, because most of the time the tension is so familiar it simply feels like the normal state of their face. But they are real, and they are continuous, and across decades they shape the face in a way that has nothing to do.
Minsan nga rin tayo, like we do tend to, right, sometimes encounter and ask the people, like, hey, are you all right? Hey, you good? But because the mark is permanently marked on their face. Kaya talagang there is a heavy psychological itong sinasabing psychological understanding na kailangan pa natin pag-aralan. What are those signs na talagang sinasabing marka? Parang naging yun po yan eh. Like I look at it is like a thumbprint, right? that it tell you what type of experience or scar or suffering that person have had by just the wrinkle of their face.
With how much someone has smiled or frowned. They shape it according to the specific internal conditions that produced them. And when those conditions change, when the alarm state genuinely reduces because the suppression genuinely reduces, because the person genuinely begins to inhabit themselves, the face begins to change too. Not through any intervention directed at the face, because the nervous system changed. And the face, which is the surface of the nervous system, cannot help reflecting that. I want to stop here and ask you something specific, because I think this is the moment in this description where the question matters most. Think about the last time you were genuinely, completely unself-conscious, not relaxed in a controlled way, not composed, not in a good mood. Genuinely unself-conscious, meaning the part of your attention that normally monitors how you are coming across was simply not running. Think about what your face felt like in that moment. Or think about a photograph from a moment like that, if you have one where you can see the difference between your face in a managed moment and your face in a moment when the management had simply stopped. Comment below and tell me what the difference was, and tell me how often you feel what that photograph looks like. Because I think the gap between the managed face and the unmanaged face is one of the most precise measurements of the distance between where a person is in their development and where they could be. The third thing is about cortisol, because the mechanism is not just psychological. It is hormonal and cellular and measurable in ways that Jung could observe clinically.
That's the word he used. Cortisol.
Before the biology had the tools to confirm them, and that modern stress research has since confirmed in specific molecular detail. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, does specific things to the skin and the face when it runs chronically. It degrades collagen, which is the structural protein that gives skin its firmness. It disrupts sleep architecture, which is when most cellular repair happens. It increases systemic inflammation, which accelerates the degradation of almost every biological system, including the ones that maintain the quality and texture of the skin. It affects the telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes that serve as one of the primary biological markers of cellular aging. Chronic cortisol shortens telomeres faster. The person who has been running a continuous background stress response for 30 years is older at the cellular level than their chronological.
I mean, we are right times. We are part of everything, and our body actually. And the moment that you die is part of the plans. They man, it's the never-ending cycle. Salute to everybody, man. Salute to everybody. You know, I mean, I'm just tapping into this understanding by Carl Jung, and that's why it says right here. Why spiritually awakened people stop aging? Pakinggan po natin to, guys.
Age suggests, and that cellular age is visible in the face, not as wrinkles in particular, but as a specific quality of the skin and of the tissue underneath it that corresponds to a body that has been metabolizing stress for longer than a healthy organism would tolerate. When genuine spiritual awakening reduces the chronic stress response, when the alarm state that has been the baseline drops because the person has stopped fighting their own authentic nature, the cortisol drops with it. The collagen degradation slows, the sleep quality improves, the cellular repair processes that were being disrupted have the space to run, and the face, across months and then years, begins to reflect a body that is no longer being consumed by the management of internal conflict. This is not metaphorical. This is the specific physiology of what Jung was observing clinically. And it explains something that no cosmetic framework can explain, which is why genuinely transformed people look different in a way that is immediately felt but almost never specifically located. You cannot point to the thing that is different. It is not a line or a texture or a specific feature. It is the overall quality of the tissue, the specific luminosity or dullness of the skin, the ease or tension in the way the face rests when it is not performing anything. These are the things that change when the cortisol drops, and they are the things that no external intervention addresses, because external interventions address the surface, while the source of the quality is several layers below the surface in the hormonal and neurological environment of a body that is or is not at war with its own authentic nature. When he noted that his most deeply transformed.
You know what's crazy with that particular statement, guys? That you can really manipulate the way you look of the way how you feel things. So all I can say is just try to feel things. Try to study those words that damages the thinking of mind and not to feel that way. Always feel good, guys. Salute to everybody, man.
Patients looked different from his least transformed ones. The fourth thing is about the eyes specifically, and I want to spend more time on this than on any of the other physical markers because the eyes are where the internal state is most immediately and most completely visible. And because the specific change that genuine spiritual awakening produces in the eyes is the change that people most consistently report noticing first when they encounter someone who has undergone significant inner transformation. Because the eyes are the most specific and the most immediate indicator of what is actually happening internally, and the most reliable way to see what genuine spiritual transformation produces that distinguishes it from every other kind of change. The eyes of a person who has not undergone significant inner development carry a specific quality of guardedness, even when the face around them is composed and pleasant and presenting well. There is a slight readiness in them, a quality of monitoring, of keeping track of something that requires continuous tracking. It is not obvious. Most people are not looking at eyes closely enough to notice it consciously, but they register it at a level below conscious assessment, and it affects how they feel in the presence of the person, a slight sense that there is something not fully accessible behind the accessible face. The eyes of a person who has done significant genuine inner work carry a different quality. There is a stillness in them that is not blankness and not serenity in any performed sense. It is the specific stillness of someone who is not running a continuous monitoring program, who is not bracing for something behind the engagement. They are simply
I don't know. I feel like they try to can't we say the simplest word to say is that the person feel like void. He feels empty. There is nothing to read about that person. Because they don't have the a scar mark on their face, those sadness that they have for years. It's unreadable.
present in the specific sense of being fully in the current moment, rather than partly in it, while also being somewhere else managing something. That quality of genuine presence in the eyes is immediately and powerfully felt by the people who encounter it. It is part of what makes certain people seem more alive than their circumstances can account for. It is part of what makes their face seem younger than their years. It is not that the eyes are without history. It is that the history is not a burden they are currently carrying. It has been integrated rather than managed, and the integration is the most important distinction in the entire framework because it is the one that produces the visible change. To integrate something is to allow it to become part of what you are rather than part of what you are managing. The grief that has been integrated.
There we go. There we go. That's the best. That's the best thing. If you can be able to integrate all your sadness or your suffering into one, and the moment it become you, you are going to be the most powerful person, man.
Does not pull on your face from underneath the
But for some particular reason, we are afraid to face this type of feeling, though. We don't want it to be that. I mean, like the moment that we go, we drifted into this type of feeling. Okay, now let's go. Just take another shot, man. It happen all the time. You know what I mean? And they don't want it to face that feeling. But when Carl Jung studying this type of stuff, right, he somehow creates some understanding, right? That a person become ageless. He will never age anymore. Salute to everybody. And I think I have gone through a few processes that, and I feel like We don't age anymore. Salute to everybody. Hey, if you understand the process, right, and you understand this type of word and everything, you don't have to go through the process by just understanding the feeling of the experience that they had. You can what was the word they used? Integrate that to yourself.
Surface of your expression. The anger that has been integrated is not held in the jaw. The shame that has been integrated is not in the slight forward curl of the posture. These things, when they are managed rather than integrated, live in the body as tensions that are continuously maintained, as holding patterns that became structural across the decades of their maintenance. And that show up not as dramatic, visible distress, but as the specific subtraction from the quality of
I mean, we see the cartoon back in the day, the transformer, right? Like one, and then boom, the integration. What happened, man? Integrate all of this negative stuff to yourself, and man, trust me, magiging matindi ka, guys.
presence that produces, in its accumulation, the face that looks more tired than the years should account for. And the difference between an integrated burden and a managed one is visible in the eyes before it is visible anywhere else. If you are still here and what I am describing is landing as recognition rather than as information, subscribe to Young Teach right now before we go further, because the next
Subscribe. Make sure you guys subscribe to Carl Young's page, and of course, I mean, we tap in, and you make sure you guys subscribe to Boji 2.2's page as well. Let's get it.
The fifth thing is about the posture and the body, because the way a person carries their body is as specific a record of their internal history as anything visible in the face. The person who has spent decades suppressing significant portions of their authentic experience carries that suppression in the physical structure of how they hold themselves. The shoulders that have been slightly raised and slightly forward for 20 years are not raised and forward because of poor posture habits. They are raised and forward because the body learned very early that this specific configuration provided a kind of protection, a slight narrowing of the target that the open, upright, unreserved posture would present. The chest that is slightly collapsed does not collapse from lack of core strength. It collapses because the person learned to make themselves physically smaller in environments where taking up full space was not entirely safe. The breath that has been shallow for decades is not shallow because of a breathing problem. It is shallow because deep breath, the kind that expands the chest fully and is audible and takes up more than the minimum of oxygen required for basic function, was not something the environment provided space for. All of this is recorded in the body, and it is visible to anyone who knows what to look for. The specific quality of how a person moves through
In
a
the
room,
face.
the ease or the guardedness with which they occupy space, the specific relationship between their movement and their actual physical environment, whether they move as if they belong in the space they are in, or as if they are moving through a space that requires ongoing navigation for the management of some threat they cannot name. All of this is the nervous system speaking in the language of the body, and it says something different when the nervous system is at peace with itself than when it is not. And all of it changes when the internal conditions change, not through deliberate work on the posture, not through breathing exercises, but through the gradual, real, physiologically mediated reduction in the alarm state that comes from being more fully yourself in more of the moments of your life. The shoulders drop not as a decision, but as a natural consequence of a nervous system that is no longer at war. The chest opens not as a practice, but as the body's response to an interior that is no longer requiring it to be closed. The breath deepens not as a technique.
Good day sa iyo dyan, Ate Grace. How are you doing today? Kumusta ka naman dyan?
Ang ganda ng ano mo, ganda ng live mo. Maganda yan, spiritual awakening.
Right. Talaga namang pinakikinggan ko, Ate Grace, kasi nga, look, di ba minsan may nakikita tayong mga tao na may mga wrinkle on the face na umaano na, pagkakasabi nga dito para raw bang mare-recognize mo of what type of pain and suffering they have gone through by the wrinkle of their face. Ano sa tingin mo yan, Ate Grace?
Totoo yan, kasi tingnan mo ako magse-70 na may wrinkles ba ako? Hello. Kasi I'm
Yeah.
very spiritual person as well.
You know, ito nga, salute to everybody. Ate Grace is 70 years old and man, she look, Ate Grace, you look
Nag-mental pa ako,
amazing.
look, tumatanda na si
Wow.
Mami G.
That's
68,
right.
hello.
Alam mo, Ate Grace, ang sinasabi nga dito ni
Yeah.
Carl Young is all about integration. Ano, yung pag sinasabing all the experience that you had in past na para bang napagsama mo na ngayon sa sarili mo, kaya nga raw na hindi ka na tumatanda eh.
Totoo yun. Totoo yun. Kasi kapag very spiritual ka, yung bang lagi kang kalma, lagi kang at peace. So, maano kasi kasi spiritual person din ako. Kaya ganun.
Yun.
Mababakas nyo ba sa mukha ko na kulubot ako? Hello. Wala akong special cream at 68. Oh, may kulubot ba si Mami G? Hello. Wala kaya.
Wow. Salute. Wow. That's right. Ito, Ate Grace, pakinggan ka natin.
But because the internal conditions that were keeping it shallow have shifted. The sixth thing is about what the transformation actually requires, because most of the popular framing around looking younger and feeling more alive at
Ito, malalaman natin, Ate Grace, talagang ito, Ate Grace, para bang ituturo niya kung aling feeling, which particular feeling you're looking for to really stay young. Ito na yung pinaka-point na to.
a later age involves things that are done to the person from the outside. New routines, better products, improved habits, more disciplined self-care, and all of those things make small differences at the margins. What Jung was pointing at makes a large difference at the foundation. And the large difference requires something different from what the small differences require. It requires a genuine encounter with the parts of yourself that you have been managing and suppressing and concealing for however long you have been doing the managing. This encounter is not comfortable. It almost never begins comfortably. It usually begins with something that feels like a problem, a depression that does not have a clear cause, a growing inability to continue performing the version of yourself that has organized your social and professional life, a specific and persistent sense that something is missing that the available prescriptions for what is missing have not been able to locate. These experiences are not the problem. They are the beginning of the solution, and the person who can hold them as a beginning rather than as a crisis to be solved is the person who will find, on the other side of them, something that the person who treated them as a problem to be fixed will not find. Because the fixing is always directed at the symptom, and the symptom is always the press of the suppressed authentic self toward the surface.
There's only one
Ayun lang. Yun lang.
What was that?
Ay, skip natin.
This is how easy it is to buy
Unskippable.
shares of
Pasalot sa
properties in
Carl Young.
brokerages. You can scroll down to a property that you're interested in.
The symptom goes away when you fix it. The authentic self does not go away. It simply becomes more insistent. The person who treats the beginning of transformation as a problem to be solved buys time but not resolution, and the cost of the time is paid in the specific way that all suppression is paid, which is in the currency of the life that would have been available if the suppression had ended. The beginning of the process by which the suppressed material starts to press its way back toward the surface, and the person who treats them as the beginning
Is always within. Salute to everybody. Salute to everybody. It's terms say so you have to look within to fix yourself. It's always look within, but the thing that Carl Jung want us to do is to really integrate this experience or this emotion to yourself so that you can really stay young. Stay young. Ano sa tingin mo, Ate Grace? You always have to look within, right? Even, di ba, sa Biblia, in the Bible says, pag the moment that you look within the outside, ikaw ay lost. You're ligaw ka. Go ahead.
Siyempre ang outside kasi ang dami kasing tukso sa sa outside world. So ang ano mo talaga, yung bang panatilihin mong busilak busilak yung isip mo, pati puso mo, kasi mahal mo sarili mo, mahal mo Diyos, mahal ang kapwa mo. Eh yung iba kasi panay inggit, panay hatred, panay, lalo dito sa social media, na isang taon nang naglulupasay yung mga buzzers ko, eh sa akin naman walang dating kasi ako, nag-enjoy lang ako rito. Ganon. Talagang ano, mahal mo
Right.
sarili mo, mahal mo Diyos, mahal kapwa mo. Ayun, para wrinkle free ka. Yun.
That's right. That's right.
Beginning, rather than as an emergency to be fixed, is the person who moves through them and arrives somewhere genuinely different on the other side. The face that looks younger on the other side is not the face of someone who found a better intervention for aging, and it is not a face that is without history. The history is there. What is not there is the specific quality of strain that comes from carrying the history in the mode of suppression rather than in the mode of integration. Integrated history does not look the same as managed history. Integrated history looks like character, like the specific lines and qualities that are genuinely the marks of a life lived, rather than the marks of a life defended. Managed history looks like tension, like the face of someone who is holding something that they are not allowed to put down. The face that looks younger, the face that Jung was observing in his most deeply transformed patients, is the face of someone who finally put down what they had been holding.
You know what, Ate Grace? I don't
Yeah.
know, right? I just wanted to find out if the feeling from social media now, since that we're talking about this and with this type of the understanding, and I feel like back in the days when Carl Jung did the study,
Mm.
they do not have no social media.
Yep.
Right. So now my question is, how are we going to integrate this feeling, right? So that we could stay younger. Because now that in this day and age, especially in this generation, as you said, with the toxicity that we see in social media, they are all looking old, Ate Grace. What do you think about that?
Actually, ako nasa social media kasi din ako
Ah,
nagtatrabaho. So yung mga anak ko born and raised dito, wala silang time sa ano sa after work nila o after mga ano nila, they're into games lang. So okay naman. Kaya lang tayo na mga nasa social media, kamukha ko, open mic ako, eh, all I want is ano lang, talaga mambutya ng mga awit. Tapos syempre makikita ko yung platform ng iba na wala naman sa hulog. Eh di siyempre critic ako, magbibitaw ako ng salitang sa alam ko na yun ang dapat itawag sa kanila, magagalit sila sa akin. Sa halip na baguhin nila yung mga hindi ka nais-nais na mga ginagawa nila sa social media, eh, ako pa yung babatikusan, wala na akong magawa doon. So ang ibig sabihin talaga, ako kasi bilang spiritual na tao, talagang basta malapit ka sa, siyempre kapag spiritual, ang kataas-taasan natin na our Lord Almighty, tapos siyempre meron tayong pinapalo na 10 commandments, yun na lang yung i-practice mo and everything would be ano na, smooth kasi lagi kang at peace, lagi kang kalma. Yun lang.
you
So,
know, di ba nga, kaya
makakapit
nga,
na,
alam mo, Ate Grace, yung maganda rin kasi, di ba yung katang row your boat? Hindi
mm,
naman sinabing magmadali ka, it says gently down the stream.
oo.
Right? And then, ano pa pagkakasabi? Merrily, kailangan mong maging masaya.
Yes, totoo yan.
Right? Yun nga yung hindi ko minsan maintindihan that how.
Uy, yes,
Hindi,
brother.
iniisip ko yung sasabi ko, Ate Grace, hindi ko maintindihan on how nagkakaroon pa rin tayo ng negative na nasasabi sa isa't isa. Ano kaya? Pero pakinggan natin ito, Ate Grace.
And the putting
No.
down in the face looks like ease, not the performed ease of someone trying to appear relaxed. The actual ease of someone who no longer needs to
According to his first statement earlier, the moment a person integrated this type of feeling, right? I mean, I don't know if you are now asking when it comes to the social media, right?
Mm.
But back in the days, according to his study, a person never age anymore. Like Ate Grace, she been through so much emotional, ups and downs throughout our life, and she even went through emotional roller coaster here in social media. that
Yep.
now she know how to integrate herself to this world, to this reality that she is 70 years old, and she feel like she's getting stronger and stronger every day. Ano sa
So,
tingin mo, Ate Grace?
yeah.
Brace against what is coming because the internal environment they are navigating has genuinely changed. The face that looks younger on the other side is not the face of someone who found a better intervention for the aging process. It is the face of someone who ended the internal war and allowed the enormous resources that war was consuming to be redirected to the basic biological maintenance that a body left to itself knows how to do. The seventh thing is about what the people around a genuinely transformed person see and feel before they can articulate what they are seeing and feeling. It is not primarily the face, though the face is part of it. It is not primarily the eyes, though the eyes are part of it. It is a quality that arrives before the assessment of any specific feature, and it is what people are pointing at when they say someone is attractive in a way they cannot explain, when they say a person is beautiful in a way that has nothing to do with their features, when they find themselves drawn to someone without knowing why. What they are being drawn to is the specific quality of an inner life that is not hiding behind anything, that is available to be met because it is not running a program of self-protection that the other person's inner life would have to navigate to get to it. It is a quality that arrives before the assessment of any specific feature, a quality of genuine presence that the nervous system registers before the mind has categorized it. Jung spent considerable time trying to understand this quality and eventually connected it to what he called the reduction of the persona's dominance, the specific shift in which the social mask that most people are primarily identified with becomes something the person wears rather than something the person is, and the reduction of the energy required to maintain it becomes available for the actual engagement with what is happening in front of them, and eventually described it as the specific signature of a self that is no longer divided, that is not running a separate background program of self-management alongside the foreground program of engagement. The person who is genuinely present, who is not partly somewhere else managing something, produces a different relational experience in the people they are with. The people feel more seen by them, not because they are working harder at making the person feel seen, but because the attention they are receiving is the full attention rather than the fraction that remains after the self-management program has taken its share. This quality is what people mean when they say someone has a presence. It is not a performance quality. It is a condition of the inner life that shows up in the outer world as something everyone around the person can feel and almost nobody can explain. And it makes the person seem more alive than they should be, more present than the years should have left them, younger in the specific sense that youth was always about aliveness and never really about the age at all. Before you go, I want to leave you with one thought that I think matters more than any of the specific mechanisms. The face that looks younger in the way this video describes is not a face that has avoided the marks of time. It is a face that has allowed the marks of time to be exactly what they are, the specific record of a life that was genuinely lived, without requiring
You know, salute sa ating mga kabrobo dyan. Yun nga, parang oh look, yung last picture, parang nga yung bakas niya ni si Ate Grace, ano, na talagang nakikita natin here in social media, the best example of how she integrate all of her experience and all of her, things that she know, and now she's enjoying ageless here in social media. Magandang umagahan dyan sa inyo. Kumusta ka dyan, Ate Grace? How are you doing today?
I'm fine, 'di ba? Sa ano ko na natutulog ako ng maaga, so I could wake up like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Pero kung natulog ako ng 6 a.m., I'd I'll be magigising din ng late kasi minsan 6 a.m. inaabot kami ng 6 a.m. sa live stream. So magigising ako ng mga 1, 2.
Ayun, no? Nakikita ko nga, basta sa akin lang, Ate Grace, we keep on enjoying, ang buhay natin. Life is too short for us not
Life is
to...
beautiful, lalo pag wala kang nararamdaman.
Good, man.
Life is so beautiful.
That's
Sabi, life is
amazing.
what you make it kasi. Yan.
There we go.
Life is what
Hey.
you make it. Kasi walang magdidikta niyan sa'yo.
Ayun, no? I mean, promote po naman dyan, Ate Grace. Ano bang mga page ngayon na ginagawa nyo? How do you guys doing? Yeah, alam ko naman na hindi marami tong ano ko, pero just i-promote yung page mo dyan para
Okay.
pagkat alam mo naman ako lagi, 1 oras lang. At pag ano yun,
Kayo.
transition ka na dun sa go ahead, Ate Grace. Ano bang
Ganito
plano mo
kasi, of
today?
course, Boji and I, magkasama kami sa team, Pinoy Sakalam na nagsusupport sa mga athletes like ang ating 3-time World Division Champion Casimiro. Tapos dala na din ng Pinoy Sakalam ang ating Bernacle with Rolando Gabriel at syempre si Kuyang Joseph ay manager ng boxer at ganun din ang ating mixed martial arts with JL Tolentino at saka iba pang mga athletes siyempre na sa
Ayun, no?
Pinoy Sakalam YouTubers. Aside from that, na very active kami nitong si Boji, meron din ako siyempre sa open mic, team pensioners, ayan. Kaya
Yun, no? Salute sa ating mga team pensioner dyan. Enjoy lang. O, awitin ninyo lang. Mga gusto ninyong awitin at talagang baka one of these days makikita natin ang team pensioners Christmas event sa Pilipinas nagpe-perform. You never know. You never know.
Wala kaming gano'n, simple lang. Especially ako, bihirang mag-live. Minsan ilang buwan, minsan iwanan mo yan kasi non-monetized channel naman ako. So, hindi ako nagugulat nga ako dun sa nag-channel na talagang parang sasabihin, patulong po kasi gusto ko po sabi ko, hey, kung di kayo kumikita ng mga 1 million views, wala kayong kita talaga. So, enjoy nyo na lang. Huwag kayong magpaka-stress na kailangan nyo ng bananas, kailangan nyo ng lots of hours. No, walang ganun.
That's right. Kailangan naman talagang YouTube talaga kailangan tayong mag-enjoy. Kailangan no stress. Ito nga yung inaano ko, Ate Grace,
Yeah.
ang gusto ko rin maintindihan, and that's what Terrence I was trying to say. Di ba nga nagkakaroon ng face mark somehow sa mga stress ang tao, pero right, pero noong mga panahon na yon, wala pang YouTube, so ang gusto naming makita, right, what type of face mark kung nagkaroon ng stress yung tao dito sa YouTube, and then they, you know what I mean, kasi nga maraming is a lot of things that they dox you here, kung anong ginagawa mo sa buhay mo, kung ano, and then, after you have gone through those type of process na mentally, ano yung mga mark sa face ng tao, yun yung gusto kong makita
Oo. Totoo yun. Ewan ko yung iba pumasok sa YouTube para magpaka-stress, magbigay ng stress. Ako pumasok sa YouTube para mambutcher ng awit, that's all. Other than that, wala akong pake.
And Terrence say he's in Southern a good place to take a son to learn the art. Damn, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that part of the. Me, I went and graduated high school at Redlands, California, and that part maybe I know on that part of the area, but I think it's Ate Grace, remember Manny Pacquiao's gym in LA just opened up, right?
Oh, I got no idea. So, meron
Yeah.
siyang isang bagong gym.
Yeah, he just had a gym in LA, if I'm not mistaken. It's called Money MP Box, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, yeah, and yeah, if you're serious, especially with boxing, my brother, I mean, we know, right, the Grace, a lot of group that can really teach these kids how to really go into that level.
Oo.
Salute to Kuya Loads. Talagang si Kuya Loads are one of the best. I think Kuya Loads might be the boxing coach of the year this year. Right, Ate Grace? And maybe Janriel Casimero's knockout against Luis Neri is going to be the knockout of the year as well. So salute. And salute to Pinoy Sakalam YouTuber Kuya Joseph. Have a safe flight. And we see you that you enjoy your vacation at the Philippines. And we'll see you back sa live. Yeah, nasa taas pa siguro sila on air. Ayun na yung dalawa. They're still on air.
They're still on air.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll damn, it's a lot of them down there, right? Ate Grace, lalo na yung mga Filipino community down there on the boxing in LA. Yeah.
Mm.
Go ahead,
Kaya
Ate Grace.
masabi ko lang talaga ang mga spiritual people, parang ano lang din yan, parang umiibig, na relax, na kalmante, na palaging motivated kasi ano ka yung bang yung contentment mo to the highest peak, hindi ka mukha ng ikaw ay magpo-focus sa material world na sana bahay, kotse, mga designer na gamit, kind of thing. Pero kasi pag may very spiritual ka, what matters ay yung bang yung utak mo'y kalma, ang puso mo'y busilak, na nagmamatter talaga yung mga magagandang ano talaga, hindi yung mga material stuff na tinatawag. Yun ang maganda sa pag ano ka spiritual person.
That's right. Kaya nga kita mo, ang the highest level na nakita nating very spiritual person, they call him Guti Masiddhata, which is Buddha, right? He is a very spiritual person. He was actually, to those who doesn't know, he actually was born as a priest, a prince. Anak siya, prince. Yeah, he was, ang tatay niya talaga ay hari.
Hari.
And can you believe, Ate Grace, na ano,
Oo.
hindi niya hindi pa siya ever nakakita ng suffering a single time in his life until nung lumabas siya sa castle, and when he talagang nakita niya yung mga ganong klaseng paghihirap talagang
Yeah.
ginawa niya sa sarili niyang umalis sa palasyo
Oo.
at para lang to experience the suffering. Pero ito nga, Ate Grace, ang may tanong rin ako na pinakamatinding tanong ako, Ate Grace. No?
Yes.
Ito gusto kong maano mo rin. Ito pinakamatindi kong tanong. Diba, kung ang Diyos, Ate Grace, right?
Go.
Na pagmahal at alam niya ang lahat na to, at sa tingin mo, Ate Grace, alam ng Diyos kung paano ang pakiramdam ng suffering, o tayo mga tao ang makaka-experience ng suffering para malaman ng Diyos kung paano ma-experience ng suffering? Ano sa tingin mo, Ate Grace?
Actually, bilang isang spiritual person, ganito, pag ako'y nagdadasal, nai-imagine ko na nasa comfort ako ng lahat, yung lahat ng comfort na meron tayo, simple lang. Tapos pag nagdadasal ka, especially na yung, siyempre Catholic ako yung bang iisipin mo na Diyos pero naipanganak sa manger, sa dayami, doon siya nilagay. Tapos batang-bata siya ay na-crucified, namatay siyang almost naked, na dinipa sa Diyos yan, Diyos natin yan. Kaya isipin ko na, oh my God, grabe talaga ang tao sa ginawa kay Jesus Christ. Grabe. Diyos yan, pero sinilang na nasa ng mga hayop, sa sabsaba ng mga hayop, namatay ng talagang nakadipat, halos walang Yun lang yun, Boji. Isipin mo. Samantala ako nandito sa comfort ng lahat na meron ako ng di ba?
Kaya sa panahon natin na to napakaswerte lang natin kasi nung mga panahon na yun, Ate Grace, pag nagkasala ka, nakinabaan natin, bumubuka na lang yung lupa at kayo nilulunok na lang, guys.
Yep.
Kaya ito Ate Grace, ang aking isang oras. Appreciate you so much for having me, for stopping by the show. Salute to Terrence, salute to Ate Grace, at enjoy your vacation down there. And then yun si Ate Grace doon and then ito naman po si Ate Grace J. Kelly, talagang nag-iisa nating nanay dito sa social media. Talagang mahal ang PSYT po mahal na mahal po namin siya. Kaya naman salute sa PSYT. PSYT talagang pretty soon magla-live na naman yan si Kuya Joseph paglanyan dito sa
Couple of hours pag naglanyan, mausisa mo,
Right.
na yan, live na yan, sana present ako.
At saka naman sa mga kabro-bro natin dyan, abang-abangan po natin guys ang sa susunod na laban ni John Real Casimero. And the next performance, talaga ng mga ang kinaiintayan ng ating mga kababayan. You know, may salute to everybody. I appreciate you, T. Go ahead, Ate Grace. What's your last message sa mga kabro-bro mo dyan? At saka sa mga kababayan natin.
Sabi ko
Good.
lang din sa nasa social media tayo, sana gamitin natin ang platform sa positive, hindi sa negative. Kamukha ko, all I want is ano lang, talaga magkakanta. Siyempre, may makikita akong hindi ka nais-nais, di siyempre, bubukod din yung bibig ko. Tanggapin nyo kasi yan ang ginagawa nyo, yun lang. That's all. Kung kakanta-kanta lang kayo, di
I
ba may
tried
mga
every popular ED pill,
mga
so you don't have to.
maberde.
Blue
Hindi
Get
na
Ready
ako
came out the winner by a
papasok
long
sa
shot.
maberde.
At 64 years old, I'm having the best sex of my life.
I've been taking Viagra for about
Need to feel
You know,
important.
sa mga
Loyalty
until
still
next time
exists
guys,
in its purest
maraming
form. So they
salamat
create
po.
psychological
See you
fiction around
guys.
ordinary human behavior. And the darker truth is this. Many people benefit from your refusal to see them clearly. Your optimism protects them. Your empathy excuses them. Your patience delays consequences. Kindness without